I thought happiness would come naturally. No more alarm clocks, no more meetings, no more rushing. But within a few months, I realized something important. Freedom without purpose can feel like drifting. I looked around and saw two kinds of retirees: those who were just passing time and those who were truly alive, joyful, and at peace. The difference wasn't money, it wasn't health, it was mindset and small habits. I started paying close attention to the people who seemed truly content in this new chapter of life. And I noticed they did certain things differently, things most of us overlook, not grand changes, but subtle, meaningful shifts. Today, I want to share the first 7 things happy retirees do differently. These are lessons I've lived, not just learned. If you're approaching retirement or already in it, I hope you'll find something here that speaks to you, because happiness, even in later years, is something we can still choose and shape. Number 1, they create a one-thing-a-day routine. Back when I was working, every day was packed: meetings, deadlines, traffic, errands. There were times I barely had room to breathe. So when I retired, I thought the open schedule would feel like a blessing. For the first few weeks, it did. I slept in, had long breakfasts, wandered through the day with no real agenda. But slowly, I began to feel off. Not depressed, not anxious, just drifting. The days blended together. Monday felt like Saturday. I'd get to the end of the week and not remember what I'd actually done. I missed the feeling of completion, of purpose, even if small. That's when I heard something simple from an old friend. Just pick one thing a day, that's it. At first, I laughed. One thing? That seemed like nothing. But I tried it. On Monday, I trimmed the front hedge. Just that. On Tuesday, I wrote a letter to my cousin in Oregon. On Wednesday, I finally cleaned out the bottom drawer in the kitchen. Each task took maybe 30 minutes. But when I finished, I felt done. Not in the exhausted way work used to make me feel, but in a grounded way, like I'd touched the day, like it wasn't wasted. This one-thing-a-day habit became my rhythm. Sometimes I do more, but the point is, I start with just one, and I choose it mindfully, not based on urgency, but on meaning. Some days it's calling a friend I haven't talked to in years. Other days, it's fixing a loose doorknob or baking a pie from scratch. I even keep a little notebook where I write each day's task. After a month, it's beautiful to look back and see 30 tiny victories. And no, not every day is productive. Some days, my one thing is to sit on the porch and listen to music. But that's still a choice, not just letting the hours slip away. The happiest retirees I know aren't necessarily busy. They're intentional. They shape their days rather than letting the days shape them. You don't need a big to-do list. You don't need to overhaul your routine. Just try this. When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what's one thing I'll do today that will give me a sense of care, purpose, or joy? Then do it, and let that be enough. Number 2, they schedule weekly, silent hours. When I was younger, silence used to make me nervous. I always felt like I had to fill it with news, with conversation, with something playing in the background, the radio in the car, the TV at home. Noise was normal. Silence felt empty. But now at 70, I see it differently. I remember the first time I gave myself an hour of quiet. I had just finished lunch, the house was still, and instead of turning on the television, I just sat at the kitchen table. No phone, no music, just a cup of tea and the sound of the wind outside. At first, my mind raced. I thought about bills, about my knees, about a story I heard on the news. But then something strange happened. The noise in my head began to settle. I noticed the sunlight on the floor, the rhythm of my breath. I felt here. That's when I started scheduling what I now call silent hours. Once a week, usually on Tuesday mornings, I give myself 1 full hour of intentional quiet. No distractions, no multitasking, no purpose, except to be. Sometimes I sit in the backyard with a blanket. Sometimes I just look out the window and sip coffee. Sometimes I close my eyes and do nothing. And you know what I found? In that stillness, I reconnect with myself. I remember what I'm grateful for. I notice how my body feels. Ideas come, emotions settle. It's like my soul gets to stretch its legs. Most retirees I know jump from activity to activity, volunteering, babysitting, traveling, helping others. And while that's beautiful, I've learned that peace requires space. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers if we're patient enough to listen. Now, when life feels overwhelming, I don't reach for a screen. I reach for silence. Not forever. Just enough to hear myself again. And I encourage you, if you're retired or soon to be, try it. Start with 20 minutes. Sit somewhere quiet. Don't try to meditate or accomplish anything. Just be still. Let the world catch up with you. Happiness doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from doing less with presence. 3. They regularly declutter emotional keepsakes. Retirement has a funny way of bringing up the past. With more time on your hands, memories start to surface, some sweet, some bittersweet, and some you didn't even realize were still waiting inside you. A few months into retirement, I decided to clean out the old boxes in the attic. What started as a practical chore turned into something much deeper. There were photos from high school, my wedding invitation, the hospital bracelet from when my son was born, love letters from my wife, old report cards, my dad's watch, a baseball glove I hadn't touched since 1972. I thought going through them would be quick. Instead, I sat there for hours, holding each item, feeling it, remembering. And then I hit something unexpected, a letter from a friend I had fallen out with. We hadn't spoken in over 30 years. Just seeing his handwriting made my chest tighten. That day I realized I wasn't just holding on to memories. I was holding on to weight, so I started a practice. Once every month, I pick one box, one drawer, or one shelf, and I go through it, not just to clean it, but to ask, do I still need to carry this? Some things I keep, of course, but others? I let go, I donate, I burn. I take a photo, then release it. I write a goodbye letter I never send. Decluttering emotionally doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing what memories you want to walk forward with and which ones you're ready to lay down. And here's the beautiful part. The more I clear, the lighter I feel. The past becomes a garden instead of a garage. I can visit it when I want, but I'm not buried under it. Happy retirees I've met don't live in museums. They honor their past, but they make space for the present. So if you have a closet full of, I'll deal with that later, maybe now is later. You don't have to do it all at once. Just begin with one box, one photo, one story, and trust that letting go doesn't mean losing. It means healing. 4. They celebrate ordinary achievements. When I left my job for the last time, I walked out of that building with a small box and a polite round of applause. It was quiet, respectful. And then it was over. No more deadlines. No more titles. No more people asking me what I'd accomplished today. And at first, I didn't miss it. I was glad to be free of the grind. I sat in my kitchen with coffee at 10 a.m. just because I could. But slowly, a strange question began to creep in. One I hadn't asked in years. Did I do anything today that mattered? It's not that I needed praise, but I did need a sense of movement, some little proof that I was still part of life, not just watching it from the sidelines. One afternoon, I cleaned the bathroom cabinet. Nothing big, just sorting, tossing old medicine, wiping shelves. But when I closed that cabinet door, I felt good, clearer. Like I'd done something that helped the house, helped me. That night, I slept better than I had all week. So the next day, I did something else small. I wrote a letter to an old Navy buddy I hadn't seen in 40 years. The day after that, I made soup from scratch. None of it was remarkable, but every little action gave my day shape. That's when I began to track my ordinary wins. Not in a fancy journal, just a small notebook on my desk, 1 line a day. Cleaned out fridge. Walked to the post office. Helped neighbor bring in groceries. When I look back at those pages now, I see a life, not a flashy one, but a full one. And I noticed something else. The happiest folks my age, they all seem to find meaning in the ordinary. They don't wait for a trip to Europe or a big party to feel alive. They clap for themselves when they fix the curtain rod. They tell their grandkids, guess what? Grandpa learned how to make a perfect boiled egg. They celebrate presence, not performance. One lady I know throws herself a little celebration each time she finishes a book. She pours a glass of wine, plays her favorite classical piece, and just sits in that joy. Another friend buys a small sticker each time he walks a full mile. Like a child with a reward chart. He says it keeps his heart young. Some people think that's silly. I think it's brilliant. Because in retirement, the big stages are gone. But you are still here. And every quiet little thing you do, choosing fruit at the market, showing up for a doctor's appointment, fixing a loose doorknob, that's life. That's you taking part in the world. So, celebrate yourself. You don't need a parade. You just need a moment of honesty, a small smile, maybe a whispered, "That was good." And if no one else sees it, let that be okay. Because at this stage, the best kind of pride is the kind that comes from within. Gentle, quiet, and earned in the most human ways. 5. They use technology for small joys. For most of my life, I didn't need much more than a radio, a wristwatch, and a landline. When the internet came around, I told my kids, that's not for me. When smartphones took over, I still clung to my flip phone, proud of keeping things simple. But over time, I started to notice something. It wasn't about needing technology. It was about missing out on the ways people were staying close. I couldn't see the pictures my son posted from his road trip. I didn't know how to join a video call when my sister turned 80. I was there, but not present. And that hurt more than I expected. Then one Sunday morning, my daughter placed a small box on the table. "Dad," she said, "this is a gift, but only if you promise to learn it." It was a smartphone, big screen, easy settings, simple layout. At first, I was nervous, tapping the wrong things, not knowing how to go back. But with her help, and later my grandson's patience, I began to find my way. I learned how to send the voice messages, how to save photos, how to check the weather before my morning walks. I downloaded an app that played jazz from the 1940s, the kind I used to dance to in the living room when no one was watching. One night, my granddaughter called me from her dorm room. "I miss you, Grandpa," she said as her face lit up my screen. And I realized this tiny rectangle in my hand wasn't a gadget. It was a window. To people I love, to memories, to joy. Now, every morning, I take 5 minutes to look at something new. A picture from my family, a short article about gardening, or just a quiet piano piece on YouTube. I don't use it to waste time. I use it to make moments richer. The happiest retirees I know, they don't let fear of technology keep them stuck. They ask for help. They learn one button at a time. They don't chase trends, but they stay open to connection. One neighbor joined a virtual choir. She sings with folks across the country every Thursday. Another uses his tablet to read large print books when his eyes get tired. I even have a friend who sends daily jokes to his grandkids, just one line every morning. They call him Grandpa Meme. We don't have to become tech experts. We just have to stay curious. So if you're feeling hesitant, I understand. But don't let that stop you from reaching out. Ask your daughter how to use video calls. Ask your nephew to show you podcasts. Watch one tutorial. Try one app. Because technology, used with intention, doesn't disconnect us. It reconnects us to people, to stories, to beauty. And there's still so much beauty to see, even from the palm of your hand. 6. They make peace with past versions of themselves. One quiet afternoon, I found an old photo of myself. Age 35, standing in front of my first house, shirt half tucked, baby on one hip, and a look on my face like I was holding up the sky. I stared at that photo for a long time. I remembered what that man was thinking, how hard he was trying. I remembered the anxiety I used to hide, the short temper I regretted, the dreams I chased, and the mistakes I still wished I could take back. For years after retiring, I avoided that kind of reflection. It felt uncomfortable, maybe even a little painful, but the more time I had on my hands, the more those earlier versions of me started showing up. Not just in pictures, but in memories, in regrets, in quiet what-ifs. At first, I thought I needed to move on, forget, bury it. But eventually, I realized something far more healing. I didn't need to forget those past selves. I needed to forgive them. And that's exactly what the happiest retirees I know do. They make peace with the people they used to be. The young father who lost his patience, the worker who stayed late too often, the friend who never returned that call, the husband who didn't always listen. They don't pretend those versions didn't exist. They don't beat themselves up either. They simply say, "You did the best you could with what you knew back then." And they mean it. Now, once a month or so, I sit quietly, sometimes with a journal, sometimes just with my breath. And I let the memories come. When they do, I don't argue with them. I don't rewrite them. I just witness them. Like I'm visiting a younger me and saying, "I see you. I know you were trying." Some days I cry. Some days I laugh. Some days I feel an ache deep in my chest, the kind that only time can explain. But always, when I finish, I feel lighter. And here's what I've learned. Peace doesn't come from fixing the past. It comes from softening toward it, letting it be what it was, and allowing yourself to grow from it. The past doesn't own you anymore, but it shaped you, and every version of you, the strong ones, the scared ones, the selfish ones, the loving ones, they all deserve a seat at your table now. You don't have to carry the weight of old mistakes into this new chapter. You've earned the right to say, "That was then, this is now, and I'm still learning." So go through those old photos. Write a letter to your younger self. Say the words out loud. "I forgive you. You did enough." Because happy retirees aren't people who had perfect lives. They're people who made peace with the life they lived and still chose to keep loving who they are now. 7. They nurture their curiosity, even in small ways. When I was a kid, I was full of questions. Why is the sky blue? How does a radio work? What happens if you plant a potato upside down? I'd pester my dad with questions until he finally said, "Go figure it out, son." Somewhere along the way, though, after the mortgage, the deadlines, the routine, that part of me quieted down. I stopped asking. I just did what needed doing. And then retirement came. Suddenly, I had time again. Time to wonder, to tinker, to explore, but I didn't know where to start. One day, I watched a hummingbird outside my window. Tiny wings, moving too fast to see. I wondered, how many times a second do those wings flap? Instead of brushing it off, I looked it up. 70 to 80 beats per second. Incredible. That one moment opened a door. The next week, I borrowed a book about birds from the library. Then I watched a documentary on migration. Then I started leaving out sugar water in a feeder just to see who'd show up. It wasn't about becoming an expert. It was about feeling alive again. That's what curiosity does. It lights a little spark in you, no matter how old you are. Now, every month, I pick something small to be curious about. One month, it was how bread rises. Another month, it was Civil War history. Another, I just learned new uses for rosemary in cooking. Nothing grand. Just little mental adventures that keep my mind open and my heart awake. The happiest retirees I know, they never stop learning, not for achievement, but for joy. They take free online classes. They ask their grandkids to explain TikTok. They join local clubs, try new recipes, read about mushrooms, stargaze, or simply ask, "What's that?" And follow the thread. You don't need a classroom or a teacher. Curiosity is your permission to keep growing, and you don't need to remember everything you learn. The goal isn't mastery, it's wonder. A few weeks ago, I sat in the back pew of a church I'd never been to, just to hear a pipe organ being played. I didn't need to know how it worked. I just wanted to feel the sound. That moment stayed with me longer than most things I read in the newspaper. You see, getting older doesn't mean shrinking. It means shifting, from proving yourself to enriching yourself. So if there's something you've always wondered about, bees, jazz, trains, poetry, now's the time. Explore it. Because a curious mind is a youthful mind, and you're never too old to be amazed. It's not about age. It's about aliveness. If there's one thing I've learned in these quiet, golden years, it's this. Happiness in retirement isn't something you stumble into. It's something you cultivate. With intention, with grace, and with a little courage. I used to think getting older meant fading, slowing down, preparing for the end. But now I know the truth. Getting older just means getting clearer about what matters, about who you are, about what no longer needs to be carried. The happiest retirees I've ever known aren't fearless. They're simply done being afraid of the wrong things. They're not scared of wrinkles or slower steps. They're not scared of learning something new or saying, "I was wrong." What they fear, if anything, is wasting the time they've been blessed with. They understand something I didn't back when I first retired, that this chapter isn't about escape, it's about arrival. You don't need to chase a second career or fill your calendar with noise. You don't have to be productive every hour. You just have to be present in your own life, awake to the small moments, brave enough to keep growing, and gentle enough to love yourself through it all. Because peace isn't found in perfection, it's found in permission. The permission to rest, to change, to forgive, to laugh again, to start again, to say, "This is still my life, and I will live it on my terms." So, if you're walking into retirement with a little fear in your gut, I get it. We all do. But don't let that fear make the decisions. Let curiosity lead. Let gratitude guide. Let wisdom, your own, earn through every high and low to light the way. You've come this far. Now live like it matters, because it still does. Every day, every breath, every smile. You're not done. You're just getting real.